July 14, 1943, on the rain-slicked cobblestones of occupied Brussels, SS Obersturmführer Klaus Barbie paused to light a cigarette, offered by a nondescript Belgian civilian whose face would never be recorded in any intelligence dossier, whose name would never appear in any resistance roster, and whose fingerprints would vanish into the anonymous fog of wartime Europe, along with countless other silent operators in the shadow war that unfolded beneath the thunder of conventional combat. The civilian extended what appeared to be a standard British-made Evans lighter, unremarkable in every visible aspect, its brushed nickel casing showing the expected wear patterns of daily use, its fluid chamber presumably filled with the increasingly rare naphtha that fueled such devices across a continent where everyday comforts had become scarce luxuries. The German security officer, notorious for his brutal interrogation methods that had earned him the sobering epithet Butcher of Lion, leaned forward, cigarette between his lips, his attention momentarily fixed on the small flame that should have appeared to illuminate the gathering darkness. Instead, when the civilian's thumb depressed the striker wheel, a single .22 caliber round discharged at point-blank range, the muffled report barely louder than the snap of the lighter mechanism itself, the small caliber bullet finding its mark with devastating precision, entering just beneath Barbie's left eye in that vulnerable triangle of facial tissue unprotected by the skull's natural architecture. The SS officer collapsed without uttering a sound, his death appearing to casual observers as nothing more dramatic than a man suddenly taken ill, while his assassin melted into the evening crowd with the innocuous lighter, its singular purpose now fulfilled, still clutched in a steadily cooling palm. This scenario, though specifically fictional regarding Barbie who actually survived the war, represents precisely the type of close-quarter elimination operation for which the SOE, Special Operations Executive, developed one of the most ingenious clandestine weapons of the Second World War, the single-shot cigarette lighter pistol, officially designated as sleeve gun, caliber .22, camouflaged. The device represented the perfect marriage of deadly functionality and mundane appearance, embodying the SOE's operational philosophy that the most effective weapon was one that remained invisible until the moment of deployment. Developed in 1942 at Station 9, the SOE's Research and Development Facility, established at the Frythe in Hertfordshire under the innocuous cover name of Experimental Station, the lighter pistol emerged from the creative minds of the Interdisciplinary Weapons Development Team, led by Lieutenant Colonel John Ronald Evelyn Atkinson, whose engineering background and inventive approach to clandestine warfare produced numerous specialized tools for the shadow campaigns being waged by Allied agents. Throughout Nazi-occupied Europe, the weapon's genesis reflected the increasingly sophisticated understanding within British intelligence communities of the operational realities faced by field agents who required weapons that could pass the increasingly thorough searches conducted by German security forces, who by 1942 had become acutely aware of the growing resistance networks supported by British special operations. The technical specifications of the device reveal the remarkable engineering precision achieved despite the wartime materials limitations and urgent development timeline, measuring 7.6 centimeters in height, 5.1 centimeters in width, and just 1.3 centimeters in depth. The lighter weapon weighed approximately 83 grams when loaded, dimensions and weight consistent with commonly available cigarette lighters of the period. The firing mechanism utilized a striker wheel that, rather than creating a spark for conventional flame production, instead activated a firing pin that would strike the rimfire primer of a single .22 caliber short round housed within a chamber ingeniously concealed in what appeared to be the fluid reservoir. The weapon's barrel, barely deserving of that designation given its extreme brevity, consisted of a simple channel bored through the upper portion of the lighter body, providing minimal stability to the projectile but sufficient directionality for the ultra-close-range engagements for which the weapon was exclusively intended. The effective range was limited to approximately 1.5 meters, though documented field reports indicate successful eliminations at distances as close as direct contact with the target's body and as far as 2 meters under optimal conditions. The muzzle velocity, significantly reduced from a conventional firearm due to the absence of proper barrel rifling and length, registered at approximately 213 meters per second, substantially below the standard 320 meters per second achieved by the same ammunition when fired from a proper pistol, but more than adequate for the penetration of unprotected human tissue at intimate ranges. The manufacturing process reflected the clandestine nature of both the weapon and the organization that commissioned it. Production was entrusted to a small workshop operating under the umbrella of the Birmingham Small Arms Company, though no official records of the contract were maintained in the company's standard production logs. the entire fabrication process being compartmentalized even within the security-conscious environment of wartime British defense manufacturing. Historical records indicate that between September 1942 and March 1945, approximately 350 units were produced in 5 distinct production batches, each incorporating minor refinements based on field feedback and materials availability. The initial production run of 52 units completed in October 1942 utilized reclaimed Evans lighter casings, while subsequent batches employed purpose-manufactured housings that more precisely accommodated the internal firing mechanism while maintaining the exact external appearance of the commercial product. The third production series, comprising 78 units completed in August 1943, incorporated a significant improvement in the form of a simplified firing mechanism that reduced the pressure required to activate the striker wheel, addressing complaints from field operators who noted that the original design required a conspicuously forceful thumb motion that might alert an observant target to something unusual about the lighter's operation. Manufacturing security protocols were stringent, with each unit assembled by a single technician who worked in isolation from the larger production facility. The completed weapons then delivered directly to SOE quartermaster facilities without passing through standard supply chain channels. The deployment methodology for these weapons reflected the SOE's sophisticated understanding of the psychological aspects of clandestine operations. Field agents were never issued the lighter pistol as a standard equipment item, but rather received them specifically for targeted elimination missions where circumstances indicated the high probability of close proximity engagement opportunities with specific high-value targets. The weapon's singular purpose, it could fire only one round and could not be reloaded in the field, imposed a psychological clarity on its use that aligned with the SOE's operational doctrine emphasizing decisive action in momentary windows of opportunity. Training protocols for the device were integrated into the standard close combat curriculum at SOE training facilities, such as the Special Training School 103 at Audley End House in Essex, where agents practiced the precise motion required to deploy the weapon effectively while maintaining the casual appearance of a smoker preparing to light a cigarette. The actual distribution of the weapons within occupied territories followed strictly compartmentalized security protocols, with the devices typically transported by diplomatic courier to neutral countries such as Switzerland, Portugal, or Sweden, then hand-carried across borders by dedicated courier agents operating under deep cover identities, often as commercial travelers associated with tobacco or luxury goods industries whose legitimate business activities provided natural cover for carrying smoking accessories. Comparison with contemporary clandestine weapons from both Allied and Axis powers highlights the distinctive advantages of the SOE lighter pistol. The American OSS, Office of Strategic Services, developed several concealable single-shot firearms, including the Stinger pen pistol that fired a .22 caliber round from what appeared to be a fountain pen, but this device lacked the natural operational context of the lighter. People rarely offered pens to strangers, while cigarettes and lights were commonly exchanged even between those with no prior acquaintance. The German SD, Sicherheitsdienst, experimented with various disguised weapons, including belt-buckle pistols chambered for 7.65mm ammunition, but these required specialized clothing items that themselves might attract attention during thorough searches. Soviet NKVD technical departments produced several lipstick pistols for female operatives, but these suffered from reliability issues in field conditions and lacked the universal social applicability of the smoking ritual that made the lighter such an effective delivery platform. The Japanese Kempeitai reportedly developed several concealed weapons for their operatives in China, including a cigarette case capable of firing 3 4.5mm rounds, but captured examples demonstrated poor quality control in manufacturing and significant accuracy limitations. Among all these contemporaneous designs, the SOE lighter pistol represented the optimal balance of concealment, reliability, deployment naturalness, and lethal effectiveness at the intended engagement distance. Documented operational deployments of the lighter pistol remain largely classified even 7 decades after the war's conclusion, but declassified SOE after-action reports and post-war debriefings of surviving agents have confirmed at least 11 successful elimination operations utilizing this device between December 1942 and April 1945. The most well-documented case involved the elimination of Hauptsturmführer Richard Bauer in Antwerp on February 17, 1944, by SOE agent codenamed Watchmaker, who approached the SS intelligence officer outside a cafe frequented by German security personnel, ostensibly to request a map direction while offering a cigarette as a social lubricant to the interaction. When Bauer accepted both the cigarette and the offered light, the single .22 round was discharged directly into his throat at a distance of approximately 40 centimeters, causing immediate incapacitation through damage to major blood vessels and the trachea. The agent then calmly walked away from the scene, discarding the now useless lighter in a sewer drain 3 blocks from the engagement location, as per standard disposal protocols for single-use devices. The German security services initially classified Bauer's death as a medical emergency, possibly a catastrophic aneurysm, and only recognized it as an assassination nearly 2 weeks later when forensic examination discovered the small-caliber round lodged against his cervical vertebrae, by which point the agent had long since departed Belgium via the established evacuation network operating through the Ardennes forest into Luxembourg. The psychological impact of these weapons extended far beyond their limited deployment numbers or the specific elimination operations they facilitated. As awareness of the existence of such disguised lethal devices gradually permeated through Axis counterintelligence services, particularly following the Bauer assassination when the recovered bullet prompted a security bulletin about potential disguised weapons, the resulting paranoia generated operational friction within occupation forces that compounded with each subsequent attack. By late 1944, German security personnel in occupied territories had begun refusing seemingly innocent interactions with local civilians, declining offered cigarettes, and avoiding social customs that had previously provided valuable intelligence-gathering opportunities through casual conversation. This deterioration of the occupier-occupied social interface represented a significant operational success for Allied intelligence services beyond the elimination of specific personnel, as it further isolated occupation forces from the populations they sought to control, degrading their situational awareness and accelerating the psychological exhaustion that contributed to eventual German withdrawal from numerous occupied territories in the face of both conventional military pressure and increasingly effective resistance operations. The technical limitations of the lighter pistol were understood by SOE planners from the outset and accepted as reasonable trade-offs given the specialized nature of its intended use. The single-shot capacity restricted the weapon to precision elimination operations rather than combat engagements, making proper target selection and approach planning critical to successful deployment. The limited effective range required operatives to position themselves within intimate proximity of targets, often necessitating elaborate cover stories or approach strategies to justify such close positioning without arousing suspicion. The low-power .22 caliber round required precise placement to ensure immediate incapacitation, ideally targeting the face, throat, or upper chest, where even the small projectile could damage critical structures sufficiently to prevent target reaction or pursuit. Perhaps most significantly, the single-use nature of the weapon meant that operatives had no backup capability if the primary attempt failed due to mechanical malfunction, operator error, or unexpected target movement. Despite these constraints, field reports consistently rated the device highly for its primary design purpose, with one SOE circuit leader in northern France describing it as the perfect ambassador of death, unassuming, patient, and suddenly final, in a coded after-action communication transmitted to London in March 1944, following a successful operation against a Vichy intelligence officer in Lille. The manufacturing legacy of the SOE lighter pistol extended beyond the specific device itself, establishing production security protocols and disguised weapon design principles that influenced subsequent generations of clandestine firearms developed during the early Cold War period. The Berkeley umbrellas with poison pellet projection capabilities used in the infamous 1978 assassination of Bulgarian dissident Georgy Markov on Waterloo Bridge clearly reflected the conceptual lineage established by the SOE's wartime disguised weapons program, maintaining the core principle that the most effective clandestine weapon is one whose true nature remains unrecognized until the moment of deployment. The technical documentation for the lighter pistol, along with several surviving examples, was transferred to various intelligence agencies during the immediate post-war period, with the newly formed CIA receiving 2 functional units and complete technical specifications in November 1947 as part of broader intelligence sharing arrangements. Soviet intelligence services, through their extensive penetration of British security establishments during this period, also acquired detailed knowledge of the device, with NKVD technical files captured from Hungarian state security archives in 1956 revealing comprehensive engineering drawings of the lighter pistol that had clearly originated from British technical documentation, though modified with certain Soviet manufacturing adaptations. Modern assessment of the SOE lighter pistol places it firmly among the most elegant and effective purpose-designed clandestine weapons of the 20th century, representing a perfect synthesis of technical innovation and psychological insight into operational realities. While its direct combat impact was necessarily limited by its specialized nature and restricted deployment numbers, its significance lies in its demonstration of the capacity for seemingly ordinary objects to be transformed into precisely targeted lethal instruments through creative engineering approaches. Contemporary weapons historians have noted that the lighter pistol's development process, with its rapid progression from concept to field-ready implementation in less than 6 months, exemplifies the acceleration of weapons innovation that characterized the desperate circumstances of wartime research programs, where conventional development timelines were compressed by immediate operational necessities. The technical achievement becomes even more impressive when considered against the backdrop of material shortages and manufacturing constraints that affected all aspects of British war production during the critical 1942 to 1943 period, when conventional arms production necessarily commanded the highest priority for limited resources. That the SOE's weapons development teams could nonetheless produce such precision instruments for highly specialized applications testifies to both the ingenuity of their design staff and the high priority assigned to clandestine operations within the broader British war effort. The historical significance of the SOE lighter pistol extends beyond its technical specifications or operational deployment record to encompass the broader evolution of clandestine warfare methodologies during the Second World War. It represented a fundamental shift in approach from the relatively straightforward sabotage and intelligence-gathering operations that characterized early resistance activities toward more sophisticated targeted elimination operations against specific Axis personnel, whose removal would generate disproportionate disruption to occupation governance structures. This transition reflected growing Allied understanding of the organizational vulnerabilities within Axis occupation administrations, where the elimination of key security, intelligence, and administrative personnel could paralyze entire regional command structures due to the highly centralized nature of Nazi governance systems and the limited pool of replacement personnel with appropriate language skills, local knowledge, and ideological reliability. In this context, the lighter pistol was not merely a weapon, but rather an embodiment of an evolving strategic approach to resistance warfare that increasingly targeted the human infrastructure of occupation rather than its physical manifestations, recognizing that in the shadow campaigns being waged across occupied Europe, the elimination of one well-placed official could achieve more meaningful disruption than dozens of conventional sabotage operations against material targets.